Okay, folks, welcome to my first review of Liam Gray's Dinoking. This comic book makes a busy first impression. Liam Gray is the writer and artist on Dinoking, and he uses a sort of manga style, which is interesting because this book comes highly recommended by Ethan Van Sciver, who hates manga. So apparently, Liam Gray did something to impress Ethan Van Sciver mightily, because this is what Ethan Van Sciver had to say about Dinoking. Dinoking #1 is so good. I'm stunned by how good it is. This is professional. It's better than anything any of the Comicsgate kings have done. I'm not even effing kidding. It is way better than anything I've read in a long time. This is legitimately excellent. A really good story that could become a movie or cartoon. Liam did it. Dino King's a hit as far as I'm concerned. It's really good. People should back it, no joke. Now that is high praise coming from Ethan Van Sciver, especially since he's saying it's better than anything any of the Comicsgate kings have done. I mean, my gosh, that even includes his Cyberfrog, John Malin's Godlike, Shane Davis's Inglorious Rex. I mean, my goodness, do you know how many other Comicsgate kings there are? Mike Barron, Andy Smith, Graham Nolan, Billy Tucci, the list goes on. And Ethan Van Sciver's actually saying that this is better than any of their books. I am really excited to check this out. Let's start with the cover. First off, the cover is beautiful. This is a wonderful picture. It's the second printing called the Cold-Blooded edition. The original edition had tinges of red rather than blue. I kind of prefer this cover. Now, I'm not making complaints, but I am noticing there are a whole bunch of elements on this cover, and not all of them are elements that I understand, so I'd like to ask some questions about them. First off, regarding the central scene, we have a wonderful picture of the main character, but we also have these comic book panels in the middle. Why are there comic book panels on the cover? It just seems a little strange. Maybe it's just an artistic choice to represent the fact that this is a comic book, but we kind of knew that. In the upper right, we have the company name, Conquest Comics, and the Xenoverse appears to be the name for the set of titles that occupy this particular universal space. We also have a one wave, which is a little bit interesting because it could have easily been wave 1. What was the motivation for putting the 1 on top? Did it just seem to look better? I think that's probably the case, but you do cause your reader to use a little bit of extra processing power when you put the 1 above the wave instead of the normal wave 1. I would suggest not taxing your reader's brain if you can avoid it. Of course, that all depends on who is your primary reader, and the reason I ask that is because inside the comic, there is this page showing people how to read the comic from left to right, which means that he must be primarily targeting Asian readers who are used to reading manga from right to left. The instructions are elaborated up at the top. Start reading here. Conquest comics are meant to be read from left to right like a Western graphic novel, meaning that action, sound effects, and word balloon order are reversed compared to traditional manga. Enjoy! Now, of course, I'm going to nitpick this. First, we've got some letters that don't need to be capitalized. Let's lowercase those. Now we've got a couple of unnecessary words. Let's get rid of those. Last, we have a hyphen we don't need. And now we're good to go. Getting back to the cover, I noticed there are a couple of foreign script words. The Asian characters I cannot even begin to make out, so I'm not even going to try. On the right-hand side, however, what we have is the words or the phrase Zetsumetsu no Fuchi, which I did run through a translator, and I got on the brink of extinction, which is very close to edge of extinction, which is there on the cover. This seems a bit of a duplication. The thing that gets me is there's more duplicated elements on this cover. If you look at the 01, 1 of 2 up in the top, you'll notice that there are duplicated elements down at the bottom. They basically map like this. So I'm wondering why these elements are twice on the cover. Now, it may be that everything up here is legally required in order to get marketed to Asian audiences, or maybe this is just a customary style that is used on manga books. I don't know. If it's actually satisfying some sort of legal requirement, great. Otherwise, I wouldn't really bother clogging up your cover with extra elements. Next, in the upper left-hand corner, I'm not sure if it's the Conquest Comics logo or if it's specifically the Xenoverse logo, because Xenoverse is colored the same way the logo is. It'd help if we had some clarification on that. Next, we have Gray Rain, which I'm guessing is a studio name. Like in the DC universe, you have DC as the publisher and Wildstorm as one of the subsidiary studios. That's just a guess, however. The last element is a doozy. It says the book is X-rated. What does that mean? You have to remember, we don't exactly know what this means because Liam lives in Australia, where the X rating may mean something entirely different from what it does here. Same thing with the Asian markets that it seems he's planning on catering to. X rating might not mean what we're used to having it mean. It could be porn, it could be something entirely else. Now let's get to the front matter of the book. This is everything that appears in the book before the story actually begins. First, on the inside cover, there is a word from the author. Now, I chose not to read this. I kind of skimmed it a little bit and realized that he was giving too much away. That's something I notice with authors is sometimes they don't realize when they're spoiling their own books. So I decided I'm going to leave this for later. What was impossible to leave for later was the Rage Against Alpha Omega picture staring me in the face. And this is a tad off-putting from the fact that Alpha and Omega is a symbol for God. And so now I have to wonder if this Dinoking character is going to be raging against God in some way. Now, it's perfectly okay to be angry with God. Things don't always go your way, and sometimes you just kind of want to lash out, but rage against God is kind of going to an extreme, so I don't know if that's going to mark this Dinoking character as a villain or some sort of anti-hero. It's just a little bit off-putting to see this at the very beginning before we even get into the story. What is not off-putting in the slightest is this beautiful two-page spread of a flood overtaking the residents of some ancient town and basically wiping them out. It's very reminiscent of the Genesis story of Noah, and as I look at the occupants of the town, I notice that they seem to be half human and half dinosaur, and if that's the case, it does seem to be a play on the Nephilim that appear in Genesis 6, which are supposed to be sort of a half angel, half human race that are supposed to represent the demigods of old. And it makes me wonder, is Dinoking going to be a story about the flood of Noah and how that actually wiped out an ancient prehistoric dinosaur-human hybrid civilization? This is the kind of picture that really gets one's mental gears grinding. Not a bad introduction to the book. We now come to a table of contents, and there's one line in particular I want to focus on. It's the line previously in Xenotype. When I first saw this line, I realized, oh my goodness, I might need to read other books before I read Dinoking #1, but I contacted Liam Gray and he said that was not the case, which of course makes me wonder, why do we even have then a previously in Xenotype page? When I did encounter the page, I did not realize that this was the page because previously in Xenotype is missing from the top. It really should have been there because I was well into the redacted area before I realized, oh, I think I'm reading about a previous comic. Since the text is here, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of things. Empires rise and empires fall. History is written by the victors. Past of Earth is shrouded in deception, and the storm-swept planet Orm is no different. Okay, I'm starting to get a little confused here because now I think we're being told that this story is going to take place both on Earth and on the planet Orm, or is it only going to take place on the planet Orm? This is important because the next portion reads, except here, and I don't know which here you mean. To me, I'm here on Earth, but do you mean here on the planet Orm? Except here, the authors of the future and the architects of the past are a clandestine cabal of gene-warped antediluvian abominations known as the Black Diamond Conspiracy. Now, as I was reading that, the fact that the authors of the future and the architects of the past, these two group names, are italicized, I thought that these were actual group labels. It wasn't until I hit the end of the sentence where it was talking about how they are both the Black Diamond Conspiracy that I realized they should not have been italicized as if they were distinct groups. Moreover, I would have put the architects of the past first just because that's chronological order. Last, a new Age of Apocalypse. Do not tread on Marvel's toes. Age of Apocalypse is a likely trademarked storyline of Marvel Comics from back in the day, and they do trot out this title every now and then. The most recent occasion I recall is 2015, when they incorporated it into their Secret Wars crossover, and it may come again, so let's not use terms that you could possibly get sued for. Next, we've got a map of the state of Arbor Bona. Arbor Bona has a motto. The motto is Deu Faucis, or God in Trenches. Now let's go ahead and clean that up a little. We'll capitalize the E, and then we will make the single quotes into double quotes. Another touch-up, we need to fix the word border in all of these instances, because in all of these instances, the word border is spelled with an A, B-O-A-R-D-E-R. Now, unless this is a variant spelling in Australia, that should be B-O-R-D-E-R. And this instance in particular has dropped the last R entirely. Now we've got a nice little wall of way too small text. Seriously, drop that map scale down a bit, increase the point size on that font so that people can read it. I've reproduced the text here so that you can read it. I don't really want to go through all this text unless there are errors that I need to correct, and there are errors that I need to correct. So let's go. The strange state of Arbor Bona. Really? A map is going to say this is a strange state? I don't think so. The state of Arbor Bona is the vacation state. Let's go ahead and put the vacation state in parentheses and quotes so that the reader is clear that this is the nickname of the state. Is a mountainous woodland region best known for the Great Chasm, scenic backwood highways, and the prolific UFO sightings that go along with them. That's actually two things, one of which was compounded. It's a little bit clunky. Let's clean that up. Known for its scenic backwood highways, along which there have been prolific UFO sightings, and the Great Chasm. West of Gardenia, I like located west of Gardenia, the state is home to several top-notch, and top-notch actually is one word in some cases, correctional centers, youth camps, and celebrity rehabilitation facilities. That's not the order I'm going to put those three things in if we're talking about the vacation state. Let's go with youth camps, celebrity rehabilitation facilities, and correctional centers. In the hustle and bustle of the Garden State, which is what? We don't know. I think you're talking about Gardenia. Let's just say Gardenia. Proves too much for Vangloria's best and brightest. Arbor Bona is where they go to rest and rehabilitate. We just used the word rehabilitation up above, so let's try a different word. And we also have rest and recovery down below. Need to think ahead a little. Let's go ahead and turn this first instance into recover. Then the privacy-loving nature of Arborans, which makes it sound like they love their privacy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they respect others' privacy. Let's change that to the privacy-respecting nature of Arborans makes it an ideal spot for, now we come to rest and recovery, and let's change that to rest and relaxation, far from the eyes of DVS communications and predatory media outlets. Is DVS communications not a predatory media outlet? Let's say DVS communications and other predatory media outlets. The next paragraph starts with a space that we don't need, plus the state's largest city. States should be a possessive, so it needs an apostrophe. The state's largest city is Bluebrook. Its neighboring states are Sapientia, Gardenia, Sicytus, Pulvis, Clown World. Though highway access to the happiest place on Orm, okay, we don't know what the happiest place on Orm is. Let's make it clear that's the nickname of Clown World. Though highway access to Clown World has been locked down since the G1 catastrophe, we don't need a comma here, and the 16 should be a word. 16 years ego. Nope, that's ago. The next sentence actually belongs as part of this sentence. Leaving the southern east, no, southeast region of the state to fall back into dilapidation and overgrowth. We don't need the word back. Why would it be falling back into dilapidation and overgrowth as if it had fallen one time before in the past? The state landmark is the Great Chasm, a massive subterranean channel carved. Why do I have carved there? Because the text as printed in the book actually separates carved into two syllables. Carved over the courses of millions of years, we don't need the courses of, carved over millions of years by a now extinct, that's hyphenated, river. The Great Chasm stretches 400 kilometers, 248.5 miles under the open sky with a depth of over a mile, 1,857 meters, or, let's be consistent with style, 6,093 feet. Like many national parks and forestry and forests within the state, the chasm and its rim are considered protected landmarks and visited frequently by hunters and sightseers. It's a little more clarified if you say and are visited frequently by hunters and sightseers. All right, we're good to go. Now, here's what I'm reminded of, not having gotten to the story yet. Long time ago, I played a game called Axis and Allies. It took 2 hours just to set up the game. That is the feeling I get with Dinoking. I have just gone through so much front matter, even skipping some of the front matter, that I feel like it's taken me 2 hours just to get to the point where I am ready to read the comic book. Did we really need a word from the author or this page saying Rage Against Alpha Omega? No. Did we really need a table of contents or a previously in Xenotype page? No. Did we really need a map of an area that we haven't even visited yet? No. About the only things that could really be said to be useful are the How to Read This Book page and the 2-page spread of the flood image. Other than that, there really shouldn't be anything standing between us and the story, which begins now. When we start the story, we're confronted with even more front matter, and it feels like a kick in the teeth to get hit with more of this after we've just plowed through so much. Ideally, when your characters first speak to each other, they can mention each other by name, and then the reader will know what their names are. So these two kids are out picking flowers and mushrooms in the woods, and finally the boy says, "That is plenty for now. Let's get going before," and then there's a sort of roar. And the girl says, "Did you hear that? It kind of sounded like a," and he says, "No way." And then feeling brave, the boy says, "It came from over here. Let's check it out." And he tells his sister, "Don't you want to see a dinosaur?" First off, I don't know of a child or adult alive who would actually say that is. It's that's. That's is just too easy in a contraction to avoid. Speaking of contraction, let's is a contraction of the words let us, so it needs an apostrophe between the T and the S. Now we come to some content issues. When the girl gets interrupted saying, "Did you hear that? It sounded kind of like a duh." We know that word is supposed to be dinosaur. The name of the book is Dinoking. If you really want to leave it in mystery, you have to leave out that D and just say, "Did you hear that? It sounded kind of like a," and then let the boy interrupt. Another content issue. He says, "Don't you want to see a dinosaur?" Why on earth does he think that they will? Nothing that they've said so far has established that seeing a dinosaur might actually be a possibility. You have to at least make it possible that they will see a dinosaur before they actually look through the bushes to see what they can see. Now, what they do see is a very hungry individual who is eating the entrails right out of a deer. And here we have a couple of cutesy-poo elements to spoil the scene. You've got a box that says name unknown, age, question marks, interests venison? Oh, ha ha ha. This is supposed to be a horrifying scene, not a funny scene. And what doesn't help the horror at all is providing noises. This is something that I addressed in Bloodruth #1, where the demon Choke rips the arms off of a corpse. Splorch is probably not how that sounds, and you should really leave it to the reader to determine for himself or herself what that sounds like, because the reader is going to come up with something in his or her mind that is way more horrifying than any kind of noise or approximate noise that you can think of. The same thing applies here. Chomp, slurp, chomp doesn't need to be there. This guy is eating the entrails out of a deer. That's horrifying enough. Let the reader imagine the rest. Things go from bad to worse as the guy gets up and approaches the children saying, "Are you enemies? Are you monsters?" And now we are absolutely terrified for these children. But a couple of things happen to knock us out of our terror. One thing is when he says, "You smell different to the others." I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be from. To say you smell different to the others means that there are others around smelling the children, and the children smell different to those others than they do to him. You smell different from the others means that he's comparing them against the animals and realizing that they smell different. I'm pretty sure from is the word that was intended here. Then we have the children pleading their case, and this totally wrecks the horror mood. What would really be best at this point is if the children were to let out a scream or remain silent, because what you want the reader to think is that he really might harm these kids. And with them pleading their case like this, that lessens the chance of that happening in the reader's mind. We cut to a scene of the children's mother, Rem Shiratori, age 36, interests blah 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 blah. We don't need to know any of that. And also, why is it that she's smiling? We've just come from a horror scene. We should stay in that mood. She should at least look pensive. Now, a panel or two later, her children do show up hale and hearty and dragging a guy in tow, and she asks, "Children, who is this? And where do your eyes go next?" If you're a Western reader, this is the way your eyes will follow the dialogue balloons. "Children, who is this? Because he don't remember much. He couldn't have found his way out of the woods. Can we keep him? It's our new friend. He was lost in the woods, but he's super strong. Yeah, Mom, can we keep him?" That's not the proper order of these dialogue balloons. The proper order of these dialogue balloons is this. "Children, who is this? It's our new friend. He was lost in the woods, but he's super strong. Because he don't remember much, he couldn't find his way out of the woods. Can we keep him? Yeah, Mom, can we keep him?" Now, how to get the dialogue dialogue in the right sequence? Honest answer, I don't know. Sometimes you have to just rewrite your dialogue. This dialogue should have been rewritten so that it followed the more natural course. Also, couldn't have find? No, nobody is going to say that, not even a child, because that's harder to say than the actual words. It's either couldn't find or couldn't have done or something like that, but it's not couldn't have find. I also have a problem with this bit of dialogue because more realistically, I think what she should be saying is something like, "Ah!" Seriously, shouldn't she be freaking out? She just turned around and this blood-soaked stranger is holding her children's hands. I mean, for all she knows, some of that could be their blood. Her reaction is way too calm. Never mind the blood. She actually doesn't freak out until she notices the style of his clothing. Then she gets all protective of her children. That's when she says, "Get out of here! Alabaster was wiped out by Black Talon, so you're either one of them," meaning you're one of Black Talon wearing an alabaster shirt, or a dead man walking, meaning Black Talon are on their way to kill you. Next, we encounter a couple of poor word choices. "We're not just some mudblood family you can geek for a thrill. My son's been elevated, you know. He's enrolled at Paradigm High in Fernway City." I regret to inform you that mudblood is a Harry Potter word. You've just kicked half of your readers into a zone of nostalgia for Harry Potter. They may or may not want to come back to your book. The other problem word here is geek. I think you meant to say gank. Gank is a gamer term which means to kill so brutally the opponent had no chance to defend itself. That fits a lot better than a word that means speak enthusiastically about, as of a hobby. And that makes sense in light of her saying, "My son's been elevated, you know. He's enrolled at Paradigm High and Fernway Academy," meaning we have some status, you can't just gank us, as if we were completely defenseless. As it turns out, the guy's just hungry to death. He passes out from sheer hunger, at which point the boy defends him. "I know he's an outsider, but you and Dad taught us that we need to help people. That is what makes us different from the animals." There's that is again. Use the contraction that's. Next, we have the mother go into a complete daze saying, "Protect us from monsters?" And the reason it seems like she's going into a daze and saying unrelated things is because we have a dialogue balloon ordering problem again. This is how Western readers will naturally read the dialogue balloons, starting from the top, going from left to right, then dropping down and going from left to right. But the actual order of the balloons is this, starting with the little girl on the left, going to the mother who echoes the little girl, and then ending with the boy. "He's a good guy, Mom. He wanted to protect us. He even gave up his catch to walk home with us so we'd be safe from monsters." Protect us? From monsters? "Yeah, he walked all the way out of the creep so Nuna the monsters messed with us." Yes, that's Nuna as in rhymes with Luna. If you meant Nunna, you need an extra N. N-U-N-N-A, or you could do N-O-N-E-A, or you could do N-O-N-E space O''the, but it's not N-U-N-A. So of course you all know what's coming in the next panel, right? I shouldn't even have to tell you. Obviously, she's going to wrestle with what her children are saying, and she's going to finally come to the decision that, yes, they do need to take this guy in. I shouldn't even have to tell you that. The reason I have to tell you that is because you don't actually see that. Instead, we jump to their house in the middle of the night for no reason. Nothing happens in the middle of the night. The next panel we encounter is the next day, and I do not understand why we didn't just jump to the next day. Okay, that's going to be it for me for now. If I go any further than this, I'm going to get bogged down in about probably 10 or 11 more pages, and I don't want to get into the meat of the story just yet. What I do want to do is remind you of just what high praise Ethan Van Sciver heaped upon Dinoking #1. He called it so good. He called it professional. He called it legitimately excellent. He called it better than anything any of the Comicsgate Kings have done. But despite all that high praise, what I see is, #1, a cover with what looks like superfluous and duplicative elements, but which might be required for Asian markets, so I'm not really sure that's all something that I can legitimately complain about. But it is a busy cover. #2, a ton of front matter that the reader doesn't need. It just keeps the reader busy. #3, a lot of text-related issues, spelling, capitalization, grammar, punctuation, style, etc. That's keeping me busy, having to correct all of it. #4, issues with dialogue content and balloon sequencing, which keeps the reader busy trying to unscramble it all, especially those poor readers who aren't used to reading left to right. I don't really see how all of that squares with this high praise. But I have to remember, I'm only 9 pages in. It's entirely possible that this book book is going to wind up being so good in the middle and the end game that it completely overrides all of the prior errors. I have seen movies that started off really bad and then got really good in the mid game or really good in the end game, and it made the whole movie worth it. And comic books can be exactly the same way, and that is what I'm hoping for here. Yes, I am telling you, there is a chance. There is a chance that Dinoking in the mid game or end game will overcome its very, very busy first impression. Thank you for watching. I'm Mike Partika. Please do subscribe so that you can be notified of my next review of Liam Gray's Dinoking. I strongly suspect this book is going to turn itself around at some point. I cannot believe that Ethan Van Sciver would have praised it so highly were that not to be the case, but we will see. Thanks again for watching. I'm Mike Partika. I will talk to you later.